internally rotate that hip and really square up that baseball and go 400 feet.
And now we're looking at the skeleton for a reason here. What was that?
Yeah, so we look at the skeleton from a sports science perspective. We want to really objectively identify joint angles, angulation, hitting mechanics. The muscles are what move the skeleton, but the joint angulations are ultimately what we think of in terms of mechanics. So when we really break down a player's swing, we start here, and then through training, we could test an athlete beforehand and then afterwards and show them the difference in their own swing.
All right, and we've got an exercise that we can do here to work on some of the mechanics that we were doing here. So,
yes.
Tell me what we're doing here as I'm going to go through it. We practiced this a little bit beforehand.
So this is a squat with the rotation, which essentially directly simulates the hitting motion in terms of him utilizing his hips, separating with his shoulders, driving with the back foot into the front hip, as well as separating those shoulders and then slowing down the force. This is an iso-inertial training device, which is really revolutionizing the sports training industry in that he's creating force and now slowing that force down.
Beautiful. All right, I'm going to be working on my swing here for a little bit. When we come back, we're going to tell you how Aroldis Chapman throws that 105-mile-per-hour fastball. Scott, I think I got some work to do.
All right, Joe, be careful. You don't want to hurt your glutes out there. So now you know about the science of hitting, right? But what if you had to pitch to a big, strong presence at the plate in the form of an Aaron Judge? Well, Andy Adler caught up with the fellas. Hey, let's send it back to Joe Messeri, who's at that Staten Island Sports Science Lab. Joe, what do you got for us now, my friend?
Scott, last time we were talking about how Aaron Judge hits those mammoth home runs. Now we're talking about how Aroldis Chapman pitches 105 miles per hour on his fastball. Mike Green back with us. So, Mike, how does he do it?
Yeah, so again, talking about size and mechanics, a guy like Aroldis Chapman, I think Tom House said it best, famous pitching coach. He has the upper body of CC Sabathia and the lower body of Randy Johnson. And 80% of velocity is found really in that shoulder to hip separation. So a guy like Aroldis Chapman has about 65 degrees of shoulder separation between hip, whereas guys like Randy Johnson have about 40 to 50, and that's where that extra miles per hour come into play.
Now, when it comes to pitchers in the Major League Baseball, we've seen a lot more injuries, including with Chapman. What is contributing to that?
Yeah, so one of the main reasons why a lot of athletes get injured in major leagues and even in the younger organizations is the difference between internal and external rotation. We see a lot of elbow injuries, labrum, and rotator cuff injuries because differences in the range of motion between internal and external rotation, as well as the difference in force output, power output between those two segments.
And you got me on the guillotine here, so what are we measuring with this?
Yeah, so right here, we're going to measure your range of motion on average. We're also going to measure the power and your fatigue index. How often are you getting fatigued throughout these reps and trying to compare and see where you may be at risk for injury.
Yeah, I don't think I got starter's arm strength in me. Maybe a reliever for an inning or a batter, Scott. So I'm going to toss it back to you here. I'm going to work on the curveball.
All right, Joe. Yanks and White Sox, top of the hour.